Hi there, I'm Timothy Linsdale, video producer. I'm a Christian. Today I'd like to put on my history hat because of this Memorial Day. Memorial Day is an American holiday observed on the last Monday of May. It honors men and women who died while serving the U.S. military. This Memorial Day, of course, occurs on May 27th, and it will vary according to the year, of course. Originally known as Decoration Day, it originated in the years following the Civil War, and it became an official federal holiday in 1971. Many Americans observe the day visiting cemeteries, in memorials, putting flags on graves and flowers. I was privileged to do that this Saturday with a large group of Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and the new girl troops. Go out and planted flags on all the veterans in a cemetery, and had a nice ceremony in recognition of the Memorial Day, in recognition of those who gave their ultimate sacrifice in defending our nation and freedom. This time also traditionally marks the beginning of the summer season for many. The Civil War is I guess you could say the iconic moment of the beginning of Memorial Day. More lives in America were claimed in war, in the Civil War, than any other war we've been in. The numbers run from anywhere from 600 to 800,000 people that died in that war. The war ended in the spring of 1865, and by the late 1860s, various towns and cities had begun holding their own springtime tributes to the countless fallen soldiers, decorating their graves with flowers and reciting prayers. Also, an interesting note, I don't know if you know, but each year Memorial Day, a national moment of remembrance takes place at 3 p.m. local time. That had been established also. It is unclear where exactly this tradition originated of Memorial Day. Numerous differing communities may have independently initiated the memorial gatherings. Nevertheless, in 1966, the federal government declared Waterloo, Waterloo, New York, the official birthplace of Memorial Day. It's supposedly, I guess it's pretty accurate, Waterloo first celebrated the day on May 5th, 1866. If I haven't said it, it's Waterloo, New York, by the way. Was chosen because it hosted an annual community-wide event honoring those soldiers that had died in Civil War. On May 5th, 1868, General John A. Logan, leader of the Organization for Northern Civil War Veterans, called for a nationwide day of remembrance later that month. The 30th of May, 1968, is designated for the purpose of strewing flowers, otherwise decorating graves of comrades who died in defense of the country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet, church light in the land he proclaimed. That's what he proclaimed. The date of Decoration Day, as he called it, was chosen because it wasn't the anniversary of any particular battle. On the first Decoration Day, General James Garfield made a speech at Arlington National Cemetery, and 5,000 participants decorated the graves of 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers buried there. Now, many northern states held similar commemorative events and reprised the tradition in subsequent years. In 1890, each one had made Decoration Day an official state holiday. Southern states, on the other hand, continued to honor their dead on separate days until after World War I. As we know, the Civil War conflict didn't end at the surrender for many. Memorial Day as Decoration Day gradually came to be known. Originally honored only those lost while fighting in the Civil War. But during World War I, the United States found itself embroiled in another major conflict, and the holiday evolved to commemorate American military personnel that died in all wars. For decades, Memorial Day continued to be observed on May 30th. But in 1968, Congress passed a uniform Monday holiday to create basically a 3-day weekend. Change went into effect in 1971. The same law also declared Memorial Day a federal holiday. Traditions, as I did with that group of Boy Scouts and other scouts, multiple groups of scouts. Cities and towns will hold parades, just multiple things that people do to recognize those who have fallen in service to our country. Last night I watched PBS's Memorial Day celebration, which is quite good. They also use it to recognize all that have served in uniform. So many things. Some wear red poppies, and that was something I remember as a kid, was wearing a red poppy. It was a day of symbolism representing a battlefield that happened in World War I. Up to that time, World War I was the conflict that had taken the greatest human toll of any previous conflict, of 8.5 million soldiers dead of battlefield injuries and disease. I believe it was John McCrae. He was a surgeon, and he wrote that poem on Flanders Field. I believe that's what it's called, and that's where that came from. Based on that poem. Now that seems to be somewhat forgotten, which is just another tradition that's come and gone when it comes to Memorial Day. As I've researched this, there's so many stories, but I think it's great. It's important that we do recognize the sacrifice that individuals make. In our recognition, in our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, we're pledging allegiance to each other, to defend each other in our nation, defend against tyranny. I did come across one that showed possibly the earliest celebration of Memorial Day was held by freed slaves. And there probably be people to argue this, but there was some history discovered in Harvard, and the researcher came across a journal that was written, and it had to do with the late Civil War battle in Petersburg. I think Charleston, South Carolina. Excuse me. After the end of the war, at that point, there were a group of slaves that came together at an old racetrack. It was the Washington Race Course, and there had been a Confederate prison there, and about 260 soldiers had died there, Union soldiers. They were buried in a mass grave. And these freed slaves had come together, according to the story, and reinterred those graves more ceremoniously. And then at the old race course, they mostly black soldiers and ministers came to recognize the fallen soldiers at that race course. Over time, apparently, it was the racetrack was demolished and covered over by modern history and forgotten. And there's some history that shows that possibly the first Memorial Day was from freed slaves after the Civil War. So there are so many stories I've read about great leaders of American leaders at the time, and others having to do with Decoration Day and then Memorial Day. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit. It's an important time for all of us as Americans to recognize the ultimate sacrifice that people have made for our freedom and the freedom of people around the world. I think that's something really important to remember, not just here, but around the world. Have Americans fought and died for the freedom of people all over. I think it's an amazing thing that we do. It's really amazing. But I think once the people recognize what Jefferson wrote, is that we were given by our Creator certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It was something given to us outside of us that we always have. Those rights we have. And since that time, we've defended it here, and we've defended it around the world for others. I think that's an amazing thing that we have done. Just amazing. So, I have to repeat this. I'm Tim Linsdale. Like and comment on my video. Subscribe to my channel to support the channel. Appreciate it very much. But now, take the time now, in remembrance of those fallen, and make it a great day of joy and peace. Thank you.